And welcome everybody. Dr. J here with my buddy Cameron and Chris, and we are bringing you another episode of Flip the Script. Again, SCRIP 86 the T, right? Okay. And so topic this morning that is making a lot of, let's say, a lot of the anti-aging podcasts these days, and certainly in a lot of the more popular books. Again, Dr. Lustig's, and I bring this one up all the time, Metabolical. And another top-selling book that you're going to hear about often is this Good Energy book, who's been out about a year or so now. And they talk about what we call, name it for me, Cameron?
Autophagy.
Autophagy. Because I like to do anything from autophagy to, anyway, but autophagy. And the autophagy, what we're talking about here is, this is the process of taking broken down proteins and waste byproducts like from the mitochondria that help to clean up the cells of their debris, and the process of getting them out of the body. If you Google that, you're going to find that this is a precursor to certain things like cancers and stuff like that, correct? Oh, did you Google that? What do you got?
Yeah, it basically just says the same thing you said. It says it's a natural process in which your cells break down and recycle their own damaged or unnecessary parts. It's your body's cellular cleanup and repair system. Old proteins, worn out cell components, and even invading microbes get broken down and reused for energy or rebuilding. If you break down the word autophagy, it just means self-eating in Greek.
Is self-eating, which basically the body's engulfing these debris itself. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So it's the body's ability to take these toxic debris and get them out of the body, engulf them, if you will, and digest them. Okay, well, that all sounds good, but, all right. So the question here is, okay, well, that's cool, but what does that have to do with me? And that's what I'm hoping that we can maybe bring to an understanding, if you will, or an enlightenment on what we can do daily to improve this process. Because personally, through the years, the last 4 or 5 years, I've done a lot of research in, the anti-aging, like a lot of other people have. And, you hear things, and we've talked about things like the advanced glycation end products, AGEs. We've talked about in podcasts SIRT1 genes, which are known as the longevity genes, where a lot of the centrinians tend to have elevation of these genes. And we talk about things like AMP kinase, which we know increases longevity. There's just increase with proper diet, foods, proteins, exercise as well, right? Okay, now, so these are a lot of, yes, they truly do hold merit. But in my opinion, over my last 4 or 5 years, I find this is sort of like the secret locked in the box key. It's something that everybody can do on a daily basis to increase what's known as senescence, or the ability to thrive as we survive, the ability to increase longevity with vitality, and something we do every day. That's what I wanted to kind of pass on, because, again, when I get into this one, I want to make sure I don't forget a few things. So if I have to put on the readers, I will here. And because this is something that we can do, I want people to understand when we talk about this process. Hopefully next time you prepare a meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever it is, think about what we're going through today, and are you contributing these byproducts to your diet to help with the process of eliminating toxins through the body that we develop over time. So like I said, the process of living itself, we're proteins. We have to build up proteins. We utilize these proteins. We wear these proteins out. We break them down. And then they become, for lack of a better word, trash. We have to get these things out of the body if we can, because it puts a stress on the body. All right. Now, the same thing happens with the intracellular substances like the mitochondria. These mitochondria, they're found in areas where we need high power, high energy, a lot of detoxification occurring anywhere there's a lot of oxidation. So these cells are powerful cells, but they run out. And when they do, well, they become sort of like any other machine. They break down, and now they need to be removed from the body so the body can thrive and survive and grow, as opposed to spending a lot of that energy getting rid of this process. Now, with that in mind, there are many things that we can do ourselves to help with this process. And because most of this process occurs where, well, these toxins are going to be carried through primarily through the blood, all right, and they eventually get passed through the biliary system. Some of them go through the lymph system, some of them go through the connective tissue. We're going to talk about what we can do to eliminate all of those today through the processes of what we put in our body, all right? So let's start with the blood first. Blood, powerful, right? So if we think about the blood, we need healthy blood to transfer these proteins as they break down through the blood system into the biliary system. What can I do to strengthen the blood? Well, our podcast about chlorophyll is a great way to start. Probably the best blood builder that there is, blood and platelets. Because a lot of these cells known as macrophages that help with the elimination of this come through the blood and through the lymph system. So we want to increase the strength of the blood. We do that with chlorophyll. Anybody who's anemic, has weak blood, side effect of that is fatigue, all right? Another sign of unhealthy body, right? So the anemic patient needs to improve that blood content if they want to sustain vitality and longevity. First place to go, chlorophyll. Probably, in my opinion, one of the best blood builders that ever created by God. And where does it come from? Through the photosynthesis of sunlight from the sun. Okay, energy. Next process.
And well, real quick, what foods will you get that from?
All right. Green leafies primarily, remember, again, photosynthesis through the plant. So any vegetables, particularly those with the powerful antioxidants, so these are the rainbow color foods. Your greens, which are not common in our diet, right, are those cruciferous vegetables that we talk about as well. The kale, the Brussels sprouts, these are loaded with it as well. And also, you know, certain grass-fed animals are also going to help with us with this because they're eating the plant that is grown from, of course, the sun, which is then loaded with the chlorophyll. So green leafies, taking chlorophyll. And of course, you know, we have products like chlorophyll complex, which is loaded with that. And chlorophyll is also high in vitamin A, vitamin K, vitamin E, the vitamin F, the polyunsaturated fatty acid. Vitamin A and vitamin E are also two very powerful, as we're going to talk about here in a little bit, sheathing materials, vitamins that help with the removal of these toxins. We'll talk about that a little bit later when I get into what's called sheathing. A simple term, I want you to think of it like Teflon coating, okay? So, good point there. Chlorophyll is the first place. Now, from there, of course, we have the biliary system. So with the biliary system, we're talking gallbladder and liver. Again, people, keep your gallbladder at all costs if you possibly can. But the liver is of course, it's the route where we're going to get rid of most of the toxins, right? So do I need a healthy liver? Well, it makes sense that I do, all right? People with compromised livers like alcoholics and other people on excessive amounts of medication like we talked about. Show me a 90-year-old on 9 meds. You don't find them, right? These toxicities on the liver do not help with longevity. Okay, so we need the healthy liver. Well, where do we get that healthy liver from? Well, again, we talked about in past podcasts. The liver has 2 detoxification processes through stage 1 to stage 2 liver detoxification. And in order to accomplish this detox, it needs certain minerals and vitamins to help that process. Primarily ones being, again, those cruciferous vegetables that we were talking about, like the kale, the Brussels sprouts, the broccoli, helps with this phase from phase 1 to phase 2. Another key component of that is coenzyme A reductase, right? This one pushes it as well. This is the enzyme necessary for making all hormones. And again, like I say, I got to go back here. This enzyme is destroyed by cholesterol lowering drugs. So again, if I'm destroying this enzyme, can't be healthy to the liver or to any other part of the body that requires this energy producing protocol to produce hormones. So as you're going to find out later, hormones are very key later on in life to this longevity, right? And so is coenzyme A reductase. So how can I rightfully say that a statin is going to increase my longevity and my vitality? At the physiological level, it doesn't make any sense. So avoid those at all costs. Find another alternative whenever possible.
Yeah, it's interesting how a lot of the medications, yes, it treats the symptoms, but it doesn't like restore the actual process of
No,
the,
it breaks
of the
down a lot of
body
those processes.
and stops them, like you just said, stops the liver from being able to do its job and hormones and all that. That is odd.
Well, when you think about this, when the way they're designed, they function with various proteins and peptides in the body. So if I go in there and I want to shut down one particular, say, peptide or protein or peptide that's the production of cholesterol to lower cholesterol, what about where are these other receptor sites at? Areas like the brain and the large muscle groups, which is why the side effects of such drugs can be things like dementia and, of course, myopathy, which is muscle pain, breakdown, and neuropathy, which is nerve breakdown and pain. A side effect that I don't really consider when I consider vitality and longevity, you follow me? So yes, we might affect one pathway that might be what we're intending to do, but what about the other possible hundreds of pathways that we didn't intend to do, which now winds up in other symptoms that we are probably going to medicate to suppress the symptom of? Hence the reason why the average 70-year-old is on 7 meds in this country now, right? Okay, but let's get back to that one. Let's get back to what we were talking today with the detoxification of the body, naturally daily process, right? To increase the longevity and vitality. Again, and I believe this eliminating process is one of the single most powerful thing that anyone can do to themselves to slow their aging on a daily basis. That's why my research over the last 4 or 5 years, and I want to let people know this study of this protocol that we're talking about, this goes back, Cameron, to the late 1920s, early 30s. So this is not new stuff. It's been phenomenal stuff studied for quite some time. It got put on a shelf, though, because there's a lot of money to be made in the symptoms associated with aging, which is known as geriatrics. Mm-hmm. So a lot of this great stuff, you have to dig to find it, right? And we want to talk about that today. So again, now we talked about the blood. The next area for elimination of these toxins, the endocrine system. Now, of course, always think the pituitary, right? All right, that's the master gland, I understand. But where the glands come in that we can daily help, the first gland is that thymus gland. I want you to think about this thymus gland. This is a powerful gland. It's also a gland that is responsible for the sheathing aspect of these protomorphogens. So let me just stop in for a second and we'll go back over what sheathing is. Okay, the sheathing process. The sheathing process in the body requires a couple things to come together to help with the sheathing. I want you to think of it again like a Teflon coating that's around these proteins as they break down. These proteins, as they break down, they're toxic. Okay, as they move through the body, they can get gummed up with things like esters, cholesterol esters, for example. So we want to try to encapsulate them as best we can to help with that elimination through the bile. How do we do that? Well, that's developing the product known as phospholipids in the body. All right. So phospholipids, that's what they do. They help to engulf these cellular debris. All right. Protect cellular damage. So you're found throughout the body, and phospholipids are made up of a phosphorus molecule, a lipid, and of course a methyl group as well. So when I'm thinking phosphorus, a mineral, where am I going to find that at, Cam? green leafies, if the soil is organic. Soil like the bluegrass of Kentucky, high in phosphorus, okay? Areas like Wisconsin, a lot more calcium, less phosphorus. So sometimes we have to supplement the phosphorus, okay? So the next one is phospholipid. Now, the lipids area, we're thinking polyunsaturated fatty acids. Flaxseed being a great one. Fish oil is another example of that, right? You were asking me about, what about grass-fed beef? Yeah, great source of it, all right? Because the polyunsaturated fatty acid comes from the plant, the green leafy plant, but not from the corn, which is what we're feeding our cows today, right? The last part of this phospholipid is some kind of methyl group. So when I'm talking methyl groups, one of the common ones is choline. In the B vitamin family, found highly concentrated in foods like eggs, all right, are a good organic B vitamin supplement, or anything that's carrying a lot of the high Bs, like if we had the wheat, the germ of the bread. Again, most of our bread, those processed, and the germ is taken out. So not a good source. So sometimes we have to supplement these. This increases the phospholipid, strengthens the phospholipid, and helps with us naturally every day getting it out of the body. So if I'm looking for something like choline, or I'm looking for a polyunsaturated fatty acid like a fish oil or a flaxseed oil, something, and again, we can also look at foods like olive oil. But there's no biscuit mentioned in here. You follow me? Okay? So, yes, this is what I want people to understand. When you're preparing that meal each day, whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, what can I do today, put in my body that can help this process? And this is what I'm hoping that you'll get today. Now, I don't want to get too much into the physiology, the chemistry, and the biology here because I want to keep it simple. So if I do, Cameron, tone me down, all right? I want to make this as simple as I possibly can. I want people to understand. So this is where we go with the phospholipid that we need to help with the sheathing process. So the thymus gland helps to secrete a hormone that helps with this sheathing process. Now, thymus gland is that gland that is one of the most utilized, powerful gland for the process of growth from the age of birth till about the age of 10. And if you think about that process, how the child grows, probably the greatest in its lifetime during that period. There may be another growth stint a little longer, farther down the line, but nothing like it is in those first 10 years. If we kept that process up, we'd be 9 foot, 10 feet tall, right? Okay, so this is what the thymus gland does. It also gets rid of, during this growth period, think about all the proteins that's going through for these child to grow, right? So there's a lot of sloughing off of protein, which would increase the toxicity. Now, so we need a gland that's going to help to get that out of there, right? And this is what the thymus gland does. This is why a lot of doctors will tell you by about the age of 10 or so, this gland starts to shrink and really becomes dysfunctional, or sometimes even not functional at all, which I beg to differ. All right. Now, at the same time, yes, it does wear itself down because that's the process of the work that it's doing. However, in their opinion, there's nothing that can be done. In my opinion, not so fast. There is. If you have nuclear proteins at your disposal to improve and restore the gland from its aging process. Anti-aging again, right? Which is what we're seeing a lot of today with the stem cells. Restoration's key. So yes, do I have privy to that? I do, all right? So in certain physicians, but you're not going to find it in a pharmaceutical. All right, you're not going to find it at Walgreens. You're not going to find it at Rite Aid. Outside the box doctors, okay? So it is doable. That's where we start with the thymus gland. Another gland that's important for this elimination process, the thyroid. So we want to keep the thyroid as healthy as possible. What's the symptoms of a hypothyroid? Weak, low thyroid. How about aging signs like hair falling out, lost hair, right? Inability to control body temperatures. Cold, hot, cold. So, and then of course the weight gain associated with it and the mental fog, mental fatigue, and overall fatigue with the body, right? Clinical signs of aging. So again, we have the thyroid that also helps secrete a hormone that helps with the elimination of this process. We want to keep it healthy. Well, what can we do for the thyroid, right? Well, let's start with trace minerals. thyroid loves them. Most popular one, iodine, something we don't get in our country. All right. Iodine is what's known as a halogen that the thyroid loves. It's found that these halogens are found the highest in the thyroid, the breasts, and the ovaries, and the prostate, for example. So when we don't get enough of this healthy mineral that helps also with the sheathing process that we were talking about earlier to get rid of these proteins, iodine's a big component, but we're not getting that in our diet anymore. Actually, they're taking it out, and they're filling us daily with three other major halogen toxins on a daily basis. Fluorine, water, toothpaste, all right, toxic halogen, bromine, put in bread now. They take the iodine out, they put the bromine in the bread. Bromine is also used for overchlorine now for cleaning pools, hot tubs, and such like that. So they're also putting that in the water. And then, of course, the chlorine's in there, right? So the chlorine's in the water as well. So we got three toxic halogens that are increasing the aging process and the detoxifying the body again, and we're losing the iodine for the thyroid. So start there, people. Keep your thyroid healthy. That's why we need that. Other glands, of course, are the pancreas, all right? That's another, it secretes the enzymes, of course, help with balancing the blood sugar. So in this process, think again like trace minerals. And anytime we have the adrenals also play a role, that's your stress gland. They love the magnesium. We're talking green leafy vegetables. They love pure vitamin C. So again, healthy sources of vitamin C are there. Then as we go on down the line in life, 40s and 50s, this process of removing these toxins out of what are known as the reticuloendothelial cells of the body, these toxins accumulate as well. This is what's found in your connective tissue. They're also prevalent in the lymph glands as well, all right? So over time, the toxins that I'm talking about here, the breakdown of these proteins, as they start to accumulate in the skin, the elderly, you'll find things like that paper-thin skin, for example. Again, the process that we use to help eliminate that is through other hormones, particularly of the gonads. So now as I get in later in life here, I'm looking into the 40s and beyond. I want to make sure that my testosterone level of men is adequate. Females have a testosterone level as well. We want to make sure that all these hormones are in balance. Estrogen in females are very important for this elimination process. So can you see where as we age, and these hormones start to decline, what's going to increase in the body, people? Because what makes all hormones? Cholesterol. So if you go to the doctor and he only checks this and doesn't check your hormones, you see where he's going to want to zap that cholesterol, because his hypothesis is that that could be a threat to your cardiovascular disease, which we don't get me into that now, but I want you to understand is that that's a natural process. Bring my hormones up so I'm adequately really getting these toxins out of the body, these broken down proteins, and my cholesterol will lower itself 90+% of the time, in my opinion, and those that I study that process in. So keep that in mind. So that's what there is the next process.
Also, if if a woman gets on birth control, that's going to mess with her hormones, and who knows what it's actually going to do.
Exactly. At a very, very early age, it starts to shut down the process. So, yes.
Yeah. And then super strong.
Yes. And also, these have also, very good point, Cameron, because these also have metabolites that are going to break down and create toxicities when you're consuming these pharmaceuticals, right? Mm. So these metabolites, as they break down, they're also increasing this toxicity, which is increasing the aging process, which again is another one of those toxins that we need to get out of the body, the process of it. So using these birth control pills and other hormone disruptors, like we haven't talked about when we talked about the hormone disruptors that are out there now, right?
The phthalates,
all of these things increase these toxicities. So again, can you see why this process is so prevalent? And if we can do something for ourselves daily in our diet to eliminate this process, we're going to increase longevity, because we're going to take the stress off the cellular system, and we're going to take the stress off the body's need, our ability to get rid of these toxins. Dude, we are just basically another species on this planet is the plant. It works a lot like we do. The plant has a circulatory system too. Okay, it happens to be water. Our circulatory system happens to be blood. This is why we talked about the power of the chlorophyll. But the plant, think about the plant, it works the same way. Anybody who works with plants knows exactly what I'm talking about here. When that soil is slightly acidic, as in compost, it'll grow beautifully. Anything in there will grow better than pure soil without any bacteria in it, for example. Now, but over time, as that soil and that plant continues to break down, like you were talking about, we drop the leaves in and around the plant, that dirt is eventually going to become more acidic, and that plant now fails to thrive because the body can't go through the process of mitosis, which is cell separation and growth. As it becomes acidic, the plant tends to die. That's what happens with us when we don't get these byproducts out of our body. The blood in the body becomes acidic, and whichever organ happens to get the most acidic over that threshold line first is the first one to go, and most probably that's when you're gone as well. So there's the importance of what we're talking about here, eliminating these toxins out of the body. So, you're hearing a lot about this and you're reading about this process, but I've yet to find anybody who explains, okay, well, how do I do this? So I guess it's time for my third book, right? I mean,
yeah.
So again, but what I want people to understand, that there is something that we can do. And for the most part, we're doing it on a daily basis. Well, okay, Doc, well, just give me some ideas. Well, let's start with this. If I'm looking to, again, increase my phospholipids, then I want good fats in my diet every day. I want flaxseed. I want the fish oil, the polyunsaturated fatty acid, right? I want to make sure that I'm getting adequate B vitamin supplementation for products like choline and other methyl donors. Now, one of the best methyl group donors that there is, because remember, I need that methyl group and that phospholipid, is my cruciferous vegetables. Again, cruciferous, we're talking the kale, the Brussels sprouts, the broccoli, the cauliflower. Make this part of your diet. Your body's going to love you for it. Okay, gimme, because it knows that you're helping it with this anti-aging process by getting rid of these built-up toxins as a part of the aging process. So we start there. We have, again, the mineral phosphorus. We need minerals. All right, the body's made of that. Body's a protein held together by a skeleton. The skeleton's made out of minerals. So we need to have that, right? Every cell must have fat to protect the lining of the cell, good fat, and that is what we're encompassed of. Did I mention a carbohydrate in here? No. Green leafies? Yes. But as far as a processed carb, it's not in your diet for longevity, which is the American diet. Sad, right? Okay. So, again, we looked at 3 processes: vitamins, methyl groups, polyunsaturated fatty acids. Keep my endocrine organs as healthy as possible. Regulate your hormones as you go through life, all right? Hormones, we want not what's considered normal. Give me optimal. Make sure you find a doctor who understands I want optimal hormonal function, because they're necessary to help with the sheathing process of getting toxins out of my body. And if my body's not having to work so hard on eliminating toxins, guess what it gets to do? It gets to regenerate and rebuild, and that means it gets to thrive and grow. When that process stops, we stop the growing process and we start the aging process. Keep that growing process alive as long as possible, and we will slow down the aging process. So the other things that we talk about, the SIRT1 genes, yes, they're great. AMP kinase, absolutely, positively. Exercise is an absolute must. Okay, what were the other ones that I was talking about? So the advanced glycation end products, AGE, spells what? Aging. Yes, these are all beneficial. But in my opinion, this is that little secret that is mentioned but not expressed how we go about doing it. So hopefully you gained a little something here today with a little understanding of how we can assist our body on a daily basis to improve our longevity and vitality, brother. All right? So, again, man, love it. You want to add anything? Because I know that was a lot. Did I keep it underneath that radar
Yeah.
or not too much? Hopefully people I did. If not, opine to me. Let me know. Say, Joey, hey, take it back down a little bit. I understand. But man, I wanted to get that out there. So let me say this. As always, stay consciously aware of your awareness of consciousness. Man, we're the only species on the planet that has that. Utilize that. Be aware that you're conscious. All right? Use it. It's a gift. And as always, make sure you're having yourself a great day so that
You ain't missing one.
there you go, brother. Till next time, everybody. Have a great one.